Welcome to this session on climate change risk perception. My name is Jonathan Schultz. I'm an assistant professor here in the Department of Communication at Cornell University. In this session, we'll consider how the public thinks about climate change and the risks that it poses, focusing on a question that puzzles many scientists. Why doesn't the general public see climate change as an urgent threat? We'll consider psychological factors that affect climate change risk perception and also messaging strategies that are wise to these psychological factors and that may ultimately increase climate-related risk perception and support for climate action. Now, despite warnings from scientists about the urgent threat posed by climate change, the public appears to be more concerned with other issues. As shown here, recent survey data from the Pew Research Center suggests that Americans are more concerned with threats from foreign entities, such as ISIS and Iran, than they are with threats from global climate change. Now the question is, why isn't the public more concerned about climate change, and as concerned as many scientists believe that they should be? One possible explanation is that the public simply lacks the facts, and if they only knew more about climate change, then they'd be as concerned as they should be. Interestingly, research finds that climate change knowledge is only a weak predictor of risk perception. Instead, a person's values matter more. For example, liberals tend to perceive greater risk from climate change than conservatives do. And those with more egalitarian worldviews who believe that society's benefits should be distributed equally among all of society perceive greater risk than those who believe that benefits should be instead distributed differentially according to society's power hierarchy. Simply put, research suggests that we tend to perceive risk in ways that align with our ideal vision for society. Risk perception has also been found to vary significantly by demographic groups. For example, research on the so-called white male effect finds that compared to other groups, white males tend to perceive less risk from environmental hazards, including climate change, relative to non-whites and females. Another factor that may contribute to low risk perception is what comes to mind, the sort of image that pops in our mind when we think about climate change. Many scholars suggest that climate impacts are often experienced as psychologically distant. And this psychological distance can take many forms. For example, for many people, climate impacts feel spatially distant as something that occurs in a faraway place, say way up in the Arctic Circle, but not close to home. Climate impacts often feel temporally distant as something that's going to happen far in the future and affect future generations, right? But not something that I need to worry about in the present. Climate change might be thought of as affecting other people, people not like you or people who are close to you. And also, climate change is sometimes thought of as a hypothetical, right? As an uncertain threat, right? Even though scientists tell us differently. Now, all of these sort of dimensions of psychological distance can contribute to reducing feelings of urgency and ultimately undermine the motivation to act on climate change. Now, if the public does think about climate change as a sort of abstract and distant threat, what can scientists and educators do to circumvent this? One possibility is through message framing. Frames are a ubiquitous feature of language. They encourage audiences to adopt particular ways of defining problems or of understanding and interpreting issues. Therefore, it has been suggested that in order to be more effective, climate change communicators should frame messages in ways that resonate with the values of their target audiences. For example, when speaking to liberals, you could talk about climate change as an equity issue. But when speaking to conservatives, perhaps you talk about climate change as a catalyst for economic growth and innovation. And also framing that emphasizes the local impacts of climate change that are already occurring and that are affecting people, not just other species or natural systems, is thought to be a promising way to reduce apathy and promote engagement on this issue. So to wrap things up, Many scientists lament that the public doesn't see climate change for the significant and urgent threat that it is, and a variety of psychological factors that we spoke about may contribute to this effect, including the tendency to judge risk in ways that match or align with our cultural values, and also the tendency to imagine climate impacts is something that affect faraway people and places rather than the here and the now. Framing messages in ways that are wise to these tendencies is a promising path forward and may help engage and inform hard-to-reach audiences. We hope you found this discussion of climate change risk perception to be a useful one. Thanks for joining us.